You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
Thanks for staying on top of the forecast with us this afternoon as we're tracking a pretty impressive line of rain that's been marching its way across the entire bay. When we take a look at the virtual set now, what you're seeing on here is the last hour of rain. And we're doing this update for you at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday. It's an important time frame to be aware of because at this point, the most intense rain of this entire system is just now starting to clear the East Bay. You're looking at the last hour of radar on here. Let me clear this off. And what we'll take a look at first is we'll orient ourselves on the bay. And I'm just going to bring on the imagery that shows us what the right now imagery is for rain. So as we go into Wednesday afternoon and evening, we're finally seeing the intense line of heavy rain, strongest wind, and even isolated thunderstorms just now beginning to clear the bay. Most of that excitement happened between about 1 o'clock in the afternoon and 4 o'clock in the afternoon for the majority of the bay. And this brings us up to the point in time now where you're seeing that cold front begin to exit the bay. What we can do with this to kind of give you an idea on why we would say that is we're going to take this, instead of looking at live radar, I'm going to switch this out. We'll say goodbye to the actual radar. And instead, I'm going to put on the radar imagery here that shows us what the forecast image has to say as we track the departure of that cold front, and I'm going to bring it ahead to about the 4 o'clock hour, which is when we're starting this. So if what we've looked at was the live radar imagery of this, here's the forecast imagery, which pretty much lines up beautifully with where the live radar has this. I'll say goodbye to that again. And just to bring on the right now imagery for rain and what the radar depiction is, that's actual. You see where the line is? And we'll put the forecast imagery on here now. And the reason why we're doing that is because I want to be able to show you what happens next. We're going to take this from that 4 o'clock time frame, and we're going to watch that line of rain here continue to work its way off towards the east and affect communities that are farther inland. So when we get to 4:30, and that's the timestamp we're now looking at on here when we play this forward, the 4:30 timestamp shows you where that heaviest rain has started to exit even the Tri-Valley. That was the cold front that was responsible for bringing out a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings across the bay today. It started first in San Francisco in the 2 o'clock hour. Then it marched its way down the peninsula to about 3 o'clock. And then by 3:30, we were looking at a severe thunderstorm warning through the Santa Cruz Mountains. And then that line continued to progress its way off towards the east and weaken as it did so. And this now brings us to the right now image. So if that's where the cold front is, and we know that's starting to exit, there's still more to look at on here. You still have these isolated showers like this one back here over San Francisco, which is now starting to redevelop. And then you can kind of see how that conforms a bit to the mountains of the peninsula. And if we can kind of stay where we are for a second and in fact arm that camera back the other way, because I want to take in the visualization where we're looking at the latest forecast for where we have any kinds of severe weather that the National Weather Service is putting on these. So what we're doing is we're looking at the latest radar imagery here now, in addition to playing back the last 3 hours as we watch the storm. But embedded within the last 3 hours of radar imagery is a layer underneath that, which will update in real time. And that layer will show us if there are any more severe thunderstorm warnings. And that would show up as a yellow or orange box. Usually it's a polygon. We don't have any right now. And that's good, because back in the 2 o'clock and the 3 o'clock hour, there were kind of checkerboards for it. So if we look at the cell for San Francisco there, and then we look up at San Francisco, it's nice to know that while certainly there's an uptick in rain, we don't anticipate that to be as intense as what came through that 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock hour when the initial line, come out over here with me, that cold front marched its way across the bay. That was the troublemaker. That cold front right there was the troublemaker. And again, just for perspective, as we clear out live radar and put the futurecast imagery on it and take it from 4 o'clock, and we're going to skip ahead an hour, we're going to look at it at 5 o'clock now. That line's gone farther east, and that's out of here. But it doesn't mean we're done completely. We're done with the most intense part of this system. But there's still about another 12 to 18 hours to go before we're done with this current storm as a whole, because this one's going to be around until we get to about noon tomorrow. So let's see if we can fit in our forecast imagery up here, because we're going to take this imagery, if we're taking a look at radar on here for where it is now. I'm just going to jump ahead. We'll say goodbye to the live radar, watch those showers as they move their way through the East Bay, and come to this. What this shows us on here now is what the forecast depiction is from now, or I should say from early this evening. You see the timestamp up there gets us into like the 8, 9, 10 o'clock hour. Clearly that cold front's moved off to the east. But we still have scattered showers to go back here. So looking forward now, this is your Wednesday night into your Thursday morning, and this is why we're not done. Isolated showers, occasional hit and miss showers will crop up here, and you'll notice there is a subtle counterclockwise rotation to that. So there's a center of the low, which is kind of right over the bay, and the timestamp up there says 7:30 tomorrow morning. So at this point now, we're right in the middle of the low. That's where you can get some more isolated thunderstorms. Notice you don't have the organized line anymore. The overall intensity is not as big at this point for as widespread an area. But if you happen to get one of those little beads, one of those little isolated cells right over you, that's a good little brief downpour. Maybe some small hail, maybe even an isolated thunderstorm. Watch that spin out of here. And by the time we've gotten to noon, now that's done. So we'll be finished with this system by the time we get there. How much rain are we talking about? In addition to what we've already gotten, another ½ an inch of rain still could fall in the North Bay, and about 6/10 of an inch of rain could fall for places like San Jose. That's storm number 1. There's 2 more coming. There's another one that's going to get in here by the time we get into Friday, and another one that's going to try and get in here by the time we get to Sunday. We're going to talk about those in 1 second. Let's get back over to the virtual map, because today's storm is hands down the most impressive of all of those. And specifically, what we saw come through in the early afternoon on Wednesday between about 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, which is what we're looking at on here at the 4 o'clock time frame, and I'll just play the previous hour to that. This was the most intense time of the next 5 days. It's certainly the most intense part of this current storm that we have with us now for the Wednesday, Thursday timeframe. But even the Friday rainmaker and then the Sunday rainmaker, neither of those will be able to do that. They're not going to produce an intense cold front like that that's going to march across the bay. So it really was Wednesday afternoon when we experienced the strongest of this. Speaking of which, let me show you a couple of items from today. I've got a couple of video items I'm going to share with you. The first one we're going to show is actually the one from Alamo. The one from Alamo is the one we're going to use for wind. Because going back to about 1 o'clock this afternoon, there was a tree, a fairly large tree, through the community of Alamo in the East Bay, which was taken down. Probably about a 35 or 40 mile an hour wind gust was moving through Alamo at that point in the afternoon. And I'm not certain if you guys have that video source, or maybe you do, and I just can't see it out here on my monitors. And maybe you guys do have it. Okay, you guys do have it up, so I can't see it out here, guys, just so you know. If there's a way to route some of the video in a slightly more effective way so I can see what we're showing on air out here. That tree went down probably at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I know that because this is video that was taken by Paul Hagan, our chief meteorologist. He's out running errands. He's going to be on, by the way, throughout the remainder of the afternoon and evening tracking the storm with you. But a 30 mile an hour wind gust was enough to take that tree down. Let's come back to the virtual map because we're going to say goodbye to radar imagery and I want to show you the wind. Because that's the other element of this. If we can get a wide shot out here off the Pacific, I'm going to put the wind field on here, and we're going to watch a pretty impressive visualization of how the cold front marched its way across the bay. We have a wind advisory today from this. Clearly, the winds are strong enough for it. Large trees have already been taken down. But that wind advisory is going to be allowed to expire at 8 o'clock, and I can show you why. Let's keep our vantage point out here. This goes back to about noon, and I'm going to play it forward from that point at noon. And we're going to watch the progression of the wind from noon to about 4 in the afternoon. And you're going to see a line develop out here. Watch what happens. The cold front comes through the wind streams, and that cold front marches its way across the bay, cuts its way across the city, and gets down to the peninsula. And what I've done here is I've brought us to just about, say, where it was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. See where they're converging like that? That's your cold front. That's where you get some of the strongest winds. At 3:30 in the afternoon, I'm going to put back the radar depiction for what it looked like at 3:30 in the afternoon when that wind stream convergence was happening right over the Santa Cruz Mountains. And what you're going to see at that same time frame is the exact location of that cold front when we had our strongest rain, strongest downpours. Let's come back down so we can see that view out off the Santa Cruz Mountains again. This is where we had our later in the day severe thunderstorm warning, which was issued in that 3 o'clock to 3:30 time frame for the Santa Cruz Mountains. Heavy rain certainly visible there as that line moved through. But at the same time, this was also when we were seeing the strongest winds, and I'm going to play that futurecast forward again, where we watch the wind streams animate on. So here comes that cold front. I'm going to play it up to 3:30. This is just another way to track where the strongest, most intense aspects of this Wednesday storm were. Here comes our cold front, marches its way across the bay, hits the Santa Cruz Mountains at 3:30. Severe thunderstorm warning. Heavy downpours, wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour or stronger. We do have confirmation that at this point, as this front was moving through the East Bay, Concord, the airport out there, registered a 60-mile-an-hour gust right along this line and pretty much within that 3 to 4 o'clock hour as this did so. The high wind advisory is allowed to expire tonight at 8. And it's because this line is marching in lockstep with that cold front and the heavier bands of rain. And if we pick up that progression again, here's what the rain has done. That's where it was at 3:30. Here's what it did at 4. Here's what it does at 5. So that's how you know, not only as the front moves east, the heaviest rain dies down and the strongest winds also die down with it. So that kind of covers how things are going to quiet down this afternoon. We've already looked at what's going to happen from this system through tomorrow. A chance for showers, scattered, isolated thunderstorms are possible until noon. So let's look ahead at a couple of other aspects from this storm. First thing is, it's a great snow producer in the Sierra. Snow level down to around 3,500 feet. That's good. And we'll get about 3 feet of snow just from this particular system up on Donner Pass. Let's take a look at I-80, Highway 50. That's your snowfall accumulation. Through this particular system, Thursday, we'll let it go. Here comes the next system on Friday. We add a little more. And then maybe we'll put down perhaps about 3 or 4 feet of snow in total on Donner Pass. In other words, it's going to be slow going if you've got to travel in the Sierra over the course of the next few days. So make sure from now all the way through Monday, if you do have to travel on either 80 or 50, you're staying on top of the forecast. Okay, after this, there's one more system coming our way. And this is the system that comes in as we get into Sunday. And when you look at Sunday on here, you can see a line of rain approaching, kind of weakens and falls apart as it does so. We don't get a whole lot out of it. Light rain Sunday into Monday, and then that will clear out as we go into early next week. We should pretty much be done with the system by the time we get there. So just a little bit of light rain still to move across the bay. From an entirely separate system on Sunday, you'll see that in the 7-day forecast with just a few light showers likely as we get there. Remembering, just a replay, on tomorrow, isolated showers through noon. Occasional thunderstorms will take us through about, say, noon, and then we'll be done. In between tomorrow and that Sunday system, there is another one, and that's going to come in on Friday. So the Friday system comes through, gives us widespread showers. That's Friday morning through the early afternoon. This one is not as rainy as the system which is coming through Wednesday and Thursday. The Friday system should have lighter rainfall totals, and it should be done. Here we are looking ahead to early afternoon and evening, and that's when it's finally coming to an end. So you'll get some more rain Friday, and then we'll have another system that comes through on Sunday. We'll be tracking all of these in detail throughout the course of the next few days, and of course here as well on the stream live. At the same time, we're on CBS News on KPIX5. You can track in and keep updated on this forecast with us there as well. For now, we'll leave you to the stream, and we'll be checking in throughout the course of today as needed.